Welcome back to part 2 of the left-handed bandit mobile paint party experience. This design is called a holiday wine glass, or I believe that's what I called it in the first half of the painting. But regardless, that's the name that we're going to go with for now. Before our break, we filled in our black background behind the wine glass and around the wine glass. We did tones on our Christmas hat, as well as in the puffs of the Christmas hat, and we did tones and highlights in the wine itself. So we're going to take our painting a step further by darkening up our background, and we're going to be starting this half of the painting utilizing our sponge brush again. So make sure that sponge brush is nice and clean by swishing around in water. You can use your fingers a little bit to work some of the excess paint out of the sponge itself. Make sure you tap it on the side of your cup, dab both sides off on your paper towel, and make sure it's nice and dry as well. Again, if there's any excess water in this sponge brush, the water will drip down your canvas and potentially ruin your hard work. So I encourage you to take just a couple of seconds to rinse it off. Make sure you dab both sides off on your paper towel, get all that excess water out of your bristles, or out of your sponge, I should say. I'm utilizing black paint for this half again to start it off with. I'm going to cover up all around and then switch to my other brush to work those tighter, finer areas again. I'm going to start with some black paint right here at the bottom of the canvas where the stem of the glass will be. Now remember, this is acrylic paint. It dries pretty fast, so I'm painting where the stem will be so that by the time we get around to painting the stem of this glass, then hopefully this area will be nice and dry. No globs of paint. Remember, no globs of paint as we complete these parts of the painting, because that will slow us down as well, especially towards this lower center part of the painting. I'm going to use black paint, sponge brush, cover it up the best I can. You'll notice that it's a lot more vibrant due to the fact that we have that base layer of black on our canvas. Should be feeling nice and smooth and evenly. No globs again. I can't stress that enough. That's going to slow you down later and make your painting look a little messy. Work your way all around the hat. Work your way around the glass and the hat. When you get to tighter areas, you can switch to the other paintbrush. It makes it a lot more easy when you switch to these other layers of this paintbrush. So when you get to those areas, feel free to switch to the smaller paintbrush. So I'm working around the different parts of the canvas and the puffball. And again, getting them as smooth as I can possibly get them, because the smoother that paint is, the faster it will dry, the better it will look. Now I got all around the hat, the glass and the hat. So now for this next portion, I can switch to my paintbrush to fill in these smaller, tighter spaces nice and easily. So I'm going to continue using my black paint. I'm going to fill in this inside behind the actual wine. That's background too, remember. Remember to leave a little bit of space for us to see where that shape of that wine glass will be. Make sure we got nice flat applications of black paint. Going to get right up against that hat. I'm going to leave a little bit of space over here to see the shape of my wine glass. I'm going to make sure I have a little bit of black on this outline around my wine to show the transparency in this wine glass. So we've successfully filled in our background with our second layer of black paint. We've successfully filled in the inside background and the outlines. And last thing I'm going to do is just touch up this little inner area right here with black paint as well. And voila, we've have all of our background complete. So for the next step of this painting, I'm going to add just a few more lines to show the difference in the hat. And from here, I'll make the stem of the glass and we should be all set. And I'll show you a few different tricks you can do to make this painting look even better. So I'm rinsing off my brush in my cup of water. I'm going to swoosh it, tap it, dab it, get that excess paint out. And I'm going to go back into my black paint. Actually, I'm going to grab a little bit more black paint. And with that black paint, because I ran out with that background, if you run out, just grab some from a neighbor and utilize theirs. You won't need too much from here. And I'm going to smooth out. I'm going to smooth out my bristles by flattening both sides in my paint. Then I have a nice flat brush, which will allow me to make sharper, tighter, flatter lines. And from here, and you can also, before I begin this, if you have any Sharpie markers around the house, I encourage you to use those. Those will make your life a lot easier as well. You just want to make sure your painting is actually dry. That's a little bit of a shortcut. I like going about things the hard way, so I'm going to use paint, a nice flat paintbrush, and I'm going to paint around those different areas of the hat that we had filled in earlier and show you those details. It's going to make the painting pop again just a little bit. Notice that we can kind of see those creases in the hat. I'm going to go right up against this edge over here. I'm going to go on the other side of that hat's area. We can use a Sharpie if we want to get into tighter, finer areas like the puffball on this hat. I got a little experience, so I'm just going to use my paintbrush. So again, if you have a Sharpie or some type of marker lying around, that will make your life a lot easier. While I wait for this lower area of my canvas to dry before I put my stem on, I'm going to add a few details into the wine by utilizing the back of my average size paintbrush. And when I say the back, I mean this area. This area can be used to make different little details by simply dipping it in paint. So I'm going to dip the back of my average paintbrush into my paint, and I'm going to use that to make some bubbles in my wine. So a couple of bubbles here and there, nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy, but some wine, of course, has some carbonation. And I can also use the tip of my brush. I'm not talking about the back anymore. I'm talking about the tip again that we've been using to add a couple of highlights here and there, a couple of lines. You don't have to do this, of course, but this is just something to keep in mind in case you want to add some more detail to your painting, in case you feel that, you know, you just want to kind of spruce it up and bring some more life to it. Add a couple of gleams in the drips, or the splashes, I should say. And then from here, the last thing I need to do is just add that stem. Now, this is pretty dry to the touch, so what I'm going to do is simply create a line that's going to go from one side to the other of that U shape of that glass by utilizing my white paint. So I'm going to start on one end of the glass. It doesn't matter whether you start on the right or the left. And with that space and those marks we left, we're going to go right around. If you run out of white paint like I'm doing, grab some more white paint and continue from where you left off and create this U shape of your glass of wine. Go all the way to the other side. My canvas is moving a little bit. Bear with me. So we got our U shape. And next, we're going to create our stem. So right here towards the bottom, we're going to make a little mark right here. Little mark facing towards it as well. And then we're going to do our best to try to make this as even as possible by smoothing down. And it's still kind of wet, that black background, so it's making gray automatically, but that's okay. Once it dries, I can kind of go back over it. And you can either make the stem going off the canvas, or you can make the bottom of the glass. For this sake of this painting, I'm going to make the stem running off of the canvas. So it's automatically mixing to make gray, but again, when that dries up, I can go back and add more white and make it more vibrant as well. Last thing I'm going to do is just put a couple of gleams of white on that glass. Now, wine glasses are usually curved, so I'm going to curve a few brush strokes and create the detail in my wine glass. Now, if you're going to make sure this dries just a little bit, my black is still a little bit wet, so it's kind of carrying into the wine. It doesn't look awful. I still like it. But when it dries, you can add more gleams that will look a lot more of a pure white. So just like that right here, that was a goof up of mine, but it's not the end of the world. I can just go right back over it with some white paint and see how that automatically fixes that issue. I'm just going to give one more touch up to the stem before I call it a day on this tutorial. So again, if you let it dry just a little bit, then that's going to make it a lot easier for you to kind of go back and do those touch-ups. But essentially, this is what we have to work with. Now, you still have other colors on the plate that we haven't even touched yet unless you decided to take your own direction. I encourage you to try different things. Maybe add some more Christmas-type ornaments. Maybe you can add some Christmas lights around your canvas, different things of that nature. But from here, I encourage you to freestyle. Maybe add your name, and of course, don't forget to sign your name somewhere on your painting. But this is going to be it for the holiday wine glass, and I hope to see you painting with me in the future.